Let's get down to business. Quebec relies heavily on animal products. We started as a fur trading post and evolved into poutine-eating, leather jacket-wearing cheese eaters. But are we aware how bad this is affecting our environment? In 2009, our province's agriculture industry was responsible for 56 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent, a measurement of all greenhouse gases quantified in perspective to carbon dioxide's global warming capacity. And most of these were methane and N2O. On top of that, 18,000 liters of water was used per kilogram of chicken and beef solely for Quebec's farms, bringing a high amount of wastewater along with it. We have a real problem, but there is one counteraction that has been on the rise: veganism. Veganism is when all animal products are cut out of your life, whether it be meat, dairy, eggs, or so much more. We want to explore this idea of veganism and crunch the numbers to figure out if this lifestyle is truly a solution.
I was raised in a meat-heavy house, so when I had to learn about the industry behind it, I was super conflicted. There are so many things morally wrong with the industry that people have only recently started to notice. The way animals are treated is nothing short of evil, another lump of meat ready to go on the chopping block. And this is terrible to me because it's unfair, man. How do they make it so delicious? But even so, without looking at it from a moral perspective, it is still clear as day that the industry behind meat is inefficient. So without further ado, let us go down the list of the most common livestock animals and show how our diets have a direct effect on the well-being of our planet. Let's start with chickens as an example for how we can measure each animal's environmental impact. They are the most common and widespread domestic farm animal on the planet, and last year, in Quebec alone, we produced 195,571,832 chickens in total. These 200 million heads yielded 344 million kilograms of poultry meat last year, according to Canada's government website. Using a graph made with information from a scientific article that I will show here on screen, we can compare about 3.3 kilograms of feed that are necessary for each kilogram of poultry. Doing the math, this value comes to a whopping 1.1 billion kilograms, or 1.13 megatons of grain used to feed chickens last year alone. We'll keep this number in mind, and next we can look at the CO2 emissions produced as a result of the production per kilogram of poultry meat. Here, we can once again use our previous value multiplied by 6 kilograms, I will get back to this, of CO2 per 1 kilogram of poultry meat to find that chickens grown in Quebec last year produced an estimated total of 2.07 megatons of CO2. If you're curious as to where the value of 6 kilograms came from, it comes as a result of a study that looked at data across more than 38,000 commercial farms in 119 countries. By repeating these calculations for the other categories of meat, we can find an estimated value of both grain consumed and CO2 produced as a result of its production. Overall, we measure the value for poultry, beef, pork, veal, mutton, and seafood. Now, it would take too long to go over each individual calculation, so for the sake of keeping this video under 12 minutes, and for the sake of my mental health, here are a couple of bar charts I made on Excel of the two calculated values we found in our chicken example, only for every type of meat named. First, we have a chart showing the weight in kilograms of each type of meat produced in 1 year here in Quebec. As you may notice, the weight of chicken meat produced in kilograms is much higher than any other sector. And while this may be true, taking a look at the next two graphs show us something very interesting. Cows are arguably the worst animal for producing carbon emissions here in Quebec, as well as the rest of the world. This is because they require a much higher amount of grain to reach their final mass, but also because they produce the most methane throughout their life compared to other farm animals who either produce less or produce none at all. Although, even if beef trumps the competition, they all still make sizable impacts on the environment. More so if the food ends up wasted. However, even if all of these numbers already seem massive, we haven't even begun to talk on the subject of byproducts.
There are actually cows designated for meat use and others specifically for milking, 365,000 of which are used for dairy, while 145,000 are designated for meat in Quebec. Milk is the basis of all forms of dairy, so if we calculate how much milk is produced annually in Quebec, we can effectively calculate all dairy emissions as well. Roughly 3,329,000,000 liters of raw milk is produced in 1 year alone in Quebec. Given the life cycle of milk emitting a total of 1.15 kilograms of CO2 per liter of milk, we're actually able to calculate the amount of emissions that all milk produces. Crunching the numbers, we multiply 1.15 kilograms of CO2 per lactating cow by the total amount of liters produced in Quebec, which is 3.329 billion liters. We get a whopping grand total of 3,828,350,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent that we would theoretically save, right? Well, not so quite. We can't just completely get rid of milk from existence. We need an alternative. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking of almond milk, aren't you? One can argue that almond milk isn't any better than cow's milk. The immense amount of water that goes into almond milk production would bring us one step forward and two steps back. Making a single liter of almond milk requires 6,098 liters of water, and I won't get into the nitty-gritty of it, but basically making one almond requires 5 liters of water. Then there's the actual production of the almond milk itself, which requires even more water. So if we wanted to replace all of Quebec's produced milk with almond milk, that would take roughly 2.03 times 10 to the 13 liters of water, which, to put into perspective, is a third of Quebec's largest water reservoir consumed just to replace milk with almond milk. That's 8.4 million Olympic swimming pools worth of water, so scratch those. The best milk alternative would actually be soy milk. Now we can be like all those annoying Starbucks addicts who ask for soy milk because they hear it's healthier. All jokes aside, soy milk only requires 28 liters of water compared to the typical 628 liters of water to produce a liter of cow milk. So we could actually be saving a lot of water if we switch to the correct dairy alternative. Another common animal byproduct is eggs. Most emissions actually go into feeding the chickens in their housing. I won't go into the details, but essentially hens are placed in these manure belt systems, which separates their feces and their eggs. However, we can calculate the emissions of the egg-laying hens and how much a dozen eggs emits. There are roughly 7,068,000 chickens in Quebec strictly designated for egg-laying. The average CO2 produced per hen is 31 kilograms per year using the poultry manure pits and belts based on their housing systems. Doing the calculations, which is 7,068,000 chickens times 31 kilograms of CO2 emitted per year per chicken, we get 219,108,000 kilograms of CO2 emitted each year. That's equivalent to the carbon emissions of 32,000 homes per year. Now let's speak in terms of the eggs themselves. It has been found that a dozen eggs can generate 2.2 kilograms of CO2 equivalent of emissions. Given that 128 million dozens of eggs are produced in Quebec each year, we can do 2.2 kilograms of CO2 per dozen multiplied by 128 million dozens, giving us a total of 282,040,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent just by egg laying. To put that into perspective, that's a year's worth of emissions of 60,000 cars.
We underestimate how much of our daily life uses animal products. From medications to a pair of shoes, animal farming contributes to our day-to-day life. Leather is a material made of the skin of cows which has undergone many processes for durability. If there's anything Minecraft hasn't taught you, it's the amount of work that goes into manufacturing leather, which is split into 4 main phases: beam yard, tan yard, dye yard, and finishing, which in turn are split into dozens of sub-phases. All this manufacturing seems quite taxing to the environment, which is true, as according to a Romanian life cycle analysis of leather production, for every kilogram of leather made, there's 3.289 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent created. Now, knowing leather is a byproduct from slaughtered meat cattle, that Quebec has around 456,000 livestock cattle, each cow averages 1,100 kilograms, and 7% of his body weight is cowhide. We can calculate the carbon dioxide equivalent Quebec emits from its leather: 115,630,254 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent, or around 115,000 metric tons. We also know these processes take a lot of water, and if all 67 of Quebec's tanneries used the 13,179 liters of water per year that Romanian tannery uses, that's 882,000 liters of water used. There is an alternative though. Imagine cutting those emissions by 2/3. According to the 2017 Pulse of the Fashion Industry report, that's what would happen if pleather was used as an alternative. However, that would beg the question of renewable resources, a whole other situation. Honey has been a constant source of debate when linked with veganism. Is it vegan? Is it not? For purposes of this project, it isn't, but this analysis can spark the initiative to look this up. The whole process of creating honey is quite energy consuming. After being harvested, it needs to be uncapped, where beeswax is removed, extracted using centrifugal force, and filtered of any particles. Therefore, it's no surprise that the most greenhouse gases come from this part of honey making, as according to a 2013 American study, every kilogram of honey gives between 0.67 to 0.92 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent. Multiply that by the 2,029 metric tons, or 2,029,000 kilograms of honey produced in 2018, and the result is around 1,359 to 1,866 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in the air per year. The bright side of honey production is that it's reliant on bees. Bees are super important as they pollinate our plants, so if more efficient ways of processing honey came to the forefront, this would be more environmentally beneficial than harmful. Finally, what do capsule pills and Jell-O have in common? It's not hospital meals, it's gelatin. Made from the collagen in animals, gelatin is a useful material, however it has major impacts on the environment. Considering most collagen is retrieved from livestock pig byproduct, we can make estimations involving pig livestock. See, according to research done by the University of Guelph in Ontario, as of 2009, around 8,100,000 pigs were slaughtered in Quebec, which can emit a lot of greenhouse gases. In fact, in Quebec, for each kilogram of carcass, 4.16 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent is emitted. Mix that with the average carcass weight of 95.7 kilograms, and we get 32 million kilograms, or 3.22 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year. Also, a study done in 2007 by the Canadian Water Resources Association found that the swine industry used on average 4,450 litres of water per head in all aspects of Eastern Canada's livestock farming. That would bring the water used for all slaughtered pigs yearly up to 36 billion litres, just for Quebec. Luckily, other alternatives for gelatin are coming on the forefront. Agar-agar from red algae plants is a popular alternative which is already common in Asian cuisine. It's clearly beneficial, as the 2015 book Seaweed Sustainability states that seaweed farming is often considered as the least environmentally damaging form of aquaculture. It requires little or no input of fertilizers, freshwater resources, or medicines, and does not cause any major physical altercations of the environment. The book does state another problem, though, that scientists don't know how algae farming interacts with other ecosystems, as large beds of seaweed have been known to cause adverse interactions.
With more vegetation from veganism comes more pesticides. You see, the usage of pesticides from increased agriculture intensity can cause severe side effects such as liver toxicity, elevated blood pressure, and even reproductive issues, especially in men. Women 1, men 0. This can actually poison bees when these no-no pesticides are directly applied to crops, and we risk them going extinct, losing yummy foods like apples, blueberries, and watermelon without their pollination. Chlorpyrifos, a more universally used pesticide typically sprayed on fruits and veggies, was meant to be eradicated by the year 2000 due to rising concerns, but it just killed those insects too damn good for us to care.
Don't care, don't care, don't care, still don't care. I don't care, I don't.
Chlorpyrifos can have harmful effects on children in their developmental phases, causing poor motor reflexes and ADHD in children. And trust me, this stuff's no joke because I have ADHD. We asked you guys what your diets were and we got a variety of answers. Adriana and I are pescatarian, Ed and Roxanne's mom are vegetarian, Chloe is plant-based, Tal is vegetarian almost vegan, and Jen is vegan. Due to our diets, we're most likely to consume more fruits and veggies than a typical meat eater. Typical meat eaters have 2.5 servings of fruits and veggies a day, but going vegan brings that up to roughly 4 servings a day. We can only imagine what an almost double increase in chlorpyrifos consumption might do to affect our health. A daily intake of higher than 1.3 micrograms per kilogram of produce can lead to severe health issues, and what do you know? 1 serving of fruits and veggies is roughly 0.1 micrograms per kilogram, which means that the recommended 4 serving a day vegan diet exceeds that limit. Now you may be wondering, okay, why did you throw all these numbers in my face? I want to know the final number of emissions. And to that I say, okay, calm down. Adding all these values from the emissions of the animal byproducts, we get a total of 11,734,556,382 kilograms of CO2 equivalent produced by animals and their products. This is not taking into account the alternatives and their emissions, but they do far less considering how things are right now. If numbers don't convince you, then I really don't know what will, because climate change is a real issue that even we as individuals can help with. If most or even all of us go vegan, that would help our Mother Earth very much.